When you stop being available, everything changes. There comes a quiet moment in life. No announcement, no dramatic music. When you realize something is off, you're always reachable, always replying, always adjusting. And yet, you feel oddly empty. You don't feel respected. You don't feel chosen. You feel used, but not in an obvious way, in a subtle, socially acceptable way. Stoicism teaches us to pay attention to these subtle shifts, because life rarely breaks us with a punch. It erodes us with small permissions we keep giving away. This is a speech about that moment. The moment you stop being endlessly available and how everything changes after that. At first, being available feels like kindness. You answer messages instantly. You cancel your plans to help others. You listen more than you speak. You give second chances, then third, then fourth. You tell yourself, this is who I am. I'm loyal. I don't abandon people. But quietly another voice starts to speak inside you. A tired voice, a resentful voice. A voice that asks, why am I always the one bending? Stoicism doesn't shame kindness, but it warns us against self-neglect disguised as virtue, because when you are available to everyone, all the time, you are unavailable to yourself. Here's a hard truth. Most people learn late. People don't value your presence when it costs you nothing, not because they're evil, but because humans are wired to respect boundaries, not sacrifices they didn't ask for. When you're always there, you become predictable. When you're predictable, you become taken for granted. You don't become important by being accessible. You become important by being intentional. And this is where the shift begins. The first time you stop being available, it feels uncomfortable. You don't reply right away. You say, I can't make it. You choose rest over explanation. And suddenly guilt shows up. You feel selfish, cold, different. But that guilt isn't proof you're doing something wrong. It's proof you've trained people to expect unlimited access to you. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you don't owe anyone your exhaustion. Stoicism is not about becoming distant or cruel. It's about becoming sovereign over your time and energy. When you stop being available, something interesting happens. Some people disappear, not dramatically, not angrily, they just fade, and that hurts. But Stoicism teaches us to see reality clearly, not emotionally. If someone only values you when you're convenient, they never valued you. They valued your availability, and losing them is not a loss of love. It's a loss of illusion. Other people react differently. They start respecting you more. They listen when you speak. They notice when you're absent. Why? Because boundaries create weight. Scarcity creates attention. When you stop chasing, people feel the space you leave behind. Let's talk about the inner change, because this is the most important part. When you stop being available, your mind becomes quieter. You stop checking your phone compulsively. You stop anticipating other people's needs before your own. You stop living in reaction mode, and for the first time you hear your own thoughts clearly. Stoicism calls this inner order. You realize how much energy you were leaking, how much peace you postponed, how much of your life was spent managing others' expectations. And something powerful happens. You begin to respect yourself. And self-respect changes how the world responds to you. There's a paradox here. The less you chase approval, the more grounded you become. The more grounded you become, the less approval you need. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending your boundaries. You stop begging to be understood. Not because you're angry, but because you're rooted. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Translation: let people misunderstand you. Let them judge your distance. Let them feel uncomfortable with your silence. Your peace does not require their permission. Stopping availability also reveals something uncomfortable. How much of your worth you tied to being needed. You realize you liked being the fixer, the listener, the dependable one, because being needed felt like being valuable. But Stoicism asks a deeper question. Who are you when you are not needed? That's where your true strength lives. When you stop being available, you stop performing, and you start existing. This shift doesn't make you lonely. It makes you selective. You choose depth over noise, alignment over approval, peace over people-pleasing. You still care, you still love, but you no longer abandon yourself to prove it. And this is when everything changes. Your time becomes sacred, your presence becomes meaningful, your energy becomes respected, not because you demanded it, but because you finally honored it yourself. So if you're at that point where you feel drained, unseen, quietly resentful, this is your sign. Stop being available for everything and everyone. Be available for what matters. Be available for growth. Be available for silence. Be available for yourself. Because the moment you stop being endlessly accessible, you don't lose people. You lose what was draining you. And in that space, a stronger, calmer, more stoic version of you finally steps forward. Quiet, unshaken, unapologetic, and that changes everything.